This portfolio belongs to our subscriber Austin, and today we are going to make it bull market ready. So first of all, let's talk about the portfolio itself. His initial capital was at around $24,700 and his current portfolio value sits at around $20,100. He holds around 38% in Bitcoin, 19% in Solana, 13% in ETH, and the rest is distributed above like a couple of altcoins. You can look at the list if you want to check them out, but we will cover them later on as well. So a bit about his personality from what I've heard from him is that he already understands like that he could have performed way better than he did till now, but his actions and his understanding of the situation doesn't match. So he still is prisoned in his current portfolio and doesn't have the time to like educate himself about the market. And I would say this is also one of his major problems, or one of the major problems he sees for his current situation. So usually this comes from a lack of confidence, and a lack of confidence usually comes from a lack of knowledge about how the market really works. And this is what we are going to solve today. So without further ado, should we directly head into step one?
Let's go.
All right. So stop holding just to hold. Jacques, I think this is one of the major things that you always talk about. So go straight into it.
All right. So right now you're holding Bitcoin, ETH, and Solana. And that's kind of a big problem if you don't know when to hold or what to hold, right? So you're holding these coins, and I frankly don't know how long you've been holding them. But the first thing to understand in your position, Austin, is if you should hold crypto at all. Right? Why are you holding Bitcoin, ETH, and Solana? Obviously, if you have a long-term investment horizon, that's not necessarily bad. We have seen Bitcoin has been going up for the past 2-3 years, pretty much without huge retraces. But we cannot really say the same about ETH and Solana, right? So between 2022 and 2025, Ethereum had a super bad performance. And Solana, since, maybe 1 year, since March, April 2024, has performed more like a stable coin, right? So it's pretty much going around 200. Yes, it went up to 290 and it went as low as I think 150, 160, something like that. So the first thing is, like, if you keep just holding your coins, BTC, ETH, Solana, you kind of have this risk that you are just holding through a bear market, that you don't perform as well, and that your coins simply can go down for long periods of time. And yeah, I have mentioned Solana, which if you were holding it for 1 year, you basically made 0 profits, right? You didn't lose money, but you also didn't make money in 1 year. Could you have made more money by allocating differently? Probably yes. Same with Ethereum. I don't know how long you've been holding it, but if let's assume you've been holding ETH since 2022, well, I'm sorry for you, but the performance was quite bad. So that's pretty much the first problem, right? It's like, should you even hold your Bitcoins at all? And we will talk about your altcoins later. Right now, we're just talking about the big chunk of your portfolio. I think about 75% of your portfolio are in the major coins. So Robin is going to give you a pretty beautiful solution to that problem, to know if you should hold crypto or if you should maybe hold cash.
And it's like a very simple one. So we have been talking about that for quite some while. And if you watch my previous videos, you will also be aware of that solution already. Question is if you are already acting upon it. It's basically just understanding if Bitcoin is in an uptrend against the US dollar, you can do the same with Ethereum and Solana. And if we are in an uptrend, you can hold those majors. If we are in a downtrend, I would say it's better to hold cash or be in that one of the major, or be invested in one of the majors with your capital that is in an uptrend against the US dollar. It's as simple as that, I would say.
Yep.
Which leads us to the next step, and this is identifying which of the majors is the strongest one, because currently you hold all 3. So why is that a problem? Now, Jacques already said, like, the Solana chart looks a bit like a stable coin if you zoom out, with some pumps and dumps in between. And the same is true for Ethereum. And the only coin which like consistently went up over like a long time horizon is Bitcoin. So if you spread your investments across those 3 major coins, you really want to understand how to identify the major in order to make a concentrated bet on that one major, but we will get into that in a second in step 3. So what happens if you are not doing that, if you're not able to identify the major coin? Because, as Jacques already mentioned, most of your portfolio sits in those 3 coins. Your portfolio will go sideways most of the time, because if you identify the major correctly, you will understand, okay, one major is strong, which means another one is weak and eventually goes down. So your portfolio will underperform drastically in a bull market. So if you are somewhat interested in making money while keeping the downside as low as possible, you have to be able to identify the major and the strongest major. And Jacques, I think let's throw the ball back to you. How do we do that?
Yeah. So also, if you really want to maximize your gains in a bull market, you need to be able to identify the strongest coins, because it will just boost your portfolio so much.
Yeah.
And you can boost it by a lot just by rotating between the strongest major coins, right? There's this misconception that you need to hold some shit coins and that they can do 100x, blah, blah, blah. But I'm telling everyone, just learn how to rotate between majors, and you're already outperforming 99.9% of all people out there, right? So how do you identify the strongest major, right? So let's go over a small example with just 3 coins, which are Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. So you look at Bitcoin versus ETH, you look at Bitcoin versus Solana, and you look at Solana versus ETH, and you do a ratio analysis between the 3. You just look which one has the, most uptrends, and the one which has the most uptrends is your strongest major coin. And this is the one you should be holding. That's pretty easy. And I don't think there's much else to say, so I'll transition to step number 3, which is how to know how to size that, right? Because now you have identified the strongest major coin, but you might be thinking, okay, how much should I allocate to it? Should I put my entire portfolio into it? Should I not put my entire portfolio into it? And you kind of run into this problem that if you do not know how to size it correctly, for example, if you have identified in May of this year, 2025, that Ethereum was the strongest one, and you only allocated 10% of your portfolio to it, or 15% of it, you might miss out on some gains, right? Because you could have allocated 50, 60, 70% of your portfolio to it and made incredible gains, right? So it is really important to understand how to size it, how much money are you putting into these major coins, because if you don't, you will just keep underperforming, right? Your portfolio is not operating at its highest potential. So Robin, tell us, how do you know how to size your positions, your major coins?
So it depends a bit on your preferences, right? So if you are someone we work with a lot of people who always said, in the beginning, they said, I don't want to sell my Bitcoin stack, so this is totally up to you, right?
That's fine.
You can do that if it's a Bitcoin stack, not a Ethereum or Solana stack. And the rest of that position, let's say you have you say 10% of your Bitcoin holdings is the portion that you will never sell, and you will keep it for your grandkids or whatever. The rest of that position can be fully rotated into the strongest major. And this way you just increase your potential gains of your portfolio massively. I actually had one guy who built upon that model and actually looked at the top 15 coins to identify the strongest major. A guy who just watched one video of me, and he made a 38% gain on Chainlink. Nice. Using this system. So he didn't went into shit coins below $100 million market cap, but he made it with one of the top 15 coins. And he did that with Ethereum as well, and with Bitcoin as well. And this guy is outperforming, I would say, 90% of the people by watching one simple video of mine where I explain this concept in detail. So he rotates with his full portfolio or with the full secure side of his portfolio, and you can do the same. Or you say, as I already mentioned, you hold a stack in Bitcoin and say, okay, this is my long-term hold.
Imagine you do 38% on 80% of your portfolio every few months, right? Imagine you've been doing this since the last 6 months, right? You easily 2x your portfolio, 3x your portfolio. Now, look at your portfolio, guys, in general, and really genuinely ask yourself this question. Did I outperform what we just described? The few 38%, 20% every month. Did I make it 2x, 3x in the last 3 to 4 months in my portfolio, right? Ask yourself genuinely this question. And if it's not the case, then you're probably doing something wrong, right? And now, Austin, we've talked about the big chunk of your portfolio, about the 80%, 70 to 80% of your safe assets, which is basically, and also, by the way, a pretty good allocation to safe cryptos, to risky cryptos, 80-20 approximately. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
So just by looking at your portfolio, that was something good. And now we're going to look at the smaller part of your portfolio, the 20%, which are in altcoins, right? So I think, Robin, you have...
I have another introduction of the next step.
Yeah, and also you have talked a lot about this, and I think you're very knowledgeable about the problem that most of the people have, because you talk with them on a daily basis, and I think it's your specialty.
All right.
So introduce us to the next point.
So I would say every single time when someone applies for CryptoGameplan and I look at their portfolio the first time, it's always the same. They hold a stupid amount of tokens and complain about not having time to research because they just hold so many coins. So with you, Austin, we have plus 20 tiny positions with no real reason why they should be there, but we get into that in a second. Now, a lot of you are thinking, I spread my capital over as many coins as humanly possible to diversify against risk. But the problem that you are faced with is that crypto, and now we become a bit technical, is a correlated asset class, which means most altcoins or most coins are moving in the same direction. So this alone should decrease the amounts of coins you hold for the sake of diversifying against downside. Because, as I said, when all coins move in the right direction, what are you diversifying against? Especially as a beginner, when you are invested in the major coin or in the major coins, you don't, using the system that we just gave you, you don't have to diversify that much. And Jacques always says, and this is I steal this quote from Warren Buffett and him, if you want to build wealth, you have to concentrate. And if you want to keep your wealth, you start diversifying. But even that, even if you want to keep your wealth, all the people that we know who make millions and millions and millions of dollars, they diversify out of crypto in order to lower the risk of their portfolio. If you are staying in crypto, holding more than 7 to 10 coins doesn't make much sense, because what are you diversifying against? All right, you could argue, okay, maybe my coin goes to zero. But first of all, if you have done your research, you will understand that this is not going to happen, or that you have a proper alert system in place to be aware of that in time, which is not possible if you hold more than 20 coins. And we can get a bit technical again, unique risk and market risk. If you diversify, your goal is to have the same level of risk as holding the asset class crypto as a whole. And again, 7 to 10 coins, you're already good with that. So you don't diversify against risk anymore, diversify for lowering the risk anymore. Now, if you diversify in order to not miss out, this is a completely different problem. And we will get into how to solve that also in a second. But I think, if you continue doing that, you will never be able to make progress. So if you hold a bunch of coins, you will not make progress, because diversifying means also lowering the potential reward that you achieve with your coins, because you just spread your positions so thin that a 2x on one of your higher risk projects doesn't affect your portfolio at all. We can make an example. Let's not take the smallest position. Let's take virtual. Virtual makes a 2x. You have $160 in virtuals. This is less than 1% of your portfolio. So those coins just cost time and bring you nothing. So this is something that you have to realize. Don't diversify because you FOMO or because you think that you lower your risk. So Jacques, I think maybe you can give some actionable advice for that.
Yeah, so we talked about the root cause, and you said that people are just they are scared of the risk and they want to diversify. So in order to have less risk, which is wrong, you just explained it also why. And also I think the second cause of that is that people, they just want to have as many coins as possible because they go into the spray and pray approach. And I did the same when I started. I was like, yeah, but what if this coin pumps? And if I don't invest in the other one, yeah, but there's this possibility that this might pump. And if I don't have a little bit of capital allocated to it, I will lose, etc. And all you're doing with that is just not having any conviction in a single project. And you will just most likely lose money, right? You'll just lose money because you have too many positions. You'll not be able to, capitalize on them. You won't have any confidence on them. And the thing is, when you spread so thin across all positions, you will just not make any gains, like Robin just said, right? If you make 100x on $10, that's not going to change anything about your portfolio, right? So the solution to that is, that's going to surprise you, but it's just going to sell all your coins which you're not convinced of, right? So as Robin said, maximally 7 to 10 coins. This is not financial advice, by the way. This is just what I would do. If I had this portfolio, I would just get rid of everything except for 7 coins, right? And also the big problem you have is probably the management of it. Like to exit 20 plus positions is just a pain in the ass, right? I couldn't imagine doing that myself. So the solution is just to cut it, and you will have a clear mind. If you know how to invest into coins, which is going to be the next step, you will have real conviction into them. You'll not be like, but I think this coin could go up. But this coin as well. First of all, you will have conviction. And second of all, if you have more capital in these coins, imagine you do a 10x, right, on 20% of your portfolio, you're just going to make way more money than when you have, it's like the lottery, right? You're putting all your chips across the table and you make 10x or 100x on $10. It's not going to change anything. You're not going to make any money. You're going to lose money, right? So that's not the right approach by any means. It's not the right approach. So the simple solution is just sell all the other coins. This is what I would do, right? This is not advice. Just trim it down to 7. And then we move to the next point, which is to stop holding bags that are bleeding versus BTC or ETH. So the big problem I'm seeing is, and you might think the same, I don't want to sell. I want to sell back at break even. Why on earth are you holding coins that are going down versus Bitcoin or Ethereum? Now, this is the problem which I'm seeing all the time, right? And we're going to come to the solution in a second. But imagine you've been holding Ethereum since 2022, right? If you follow our process, you should have held BTC, right? But if you held ETH, it was clearly in a downtrend versus Bitcoin for 3 years. And if you just held ETH because you thought, oh my God, it's fundamentally good. By the way, I agree. I like Ethereum as well. But why would I hold a coin which is going down versus USD versus Bitcoin? And if you're holding a coin which is not ETH, why would you hold a coin which is going down versus ETH, right? What's going to happen is you're going to take on more risk and you're going to lose more money, right? Why would I hold Ethereum if it's going down versus BTC? It is more risky than Ethereum, and Bitcoin is going up more than ETH. Why on earth would you hold it? It's a big problem. I see so many people, they're hoping that someday it will go up. If you're lucky, and by the way, today is the 25th of August of 2025, so I think you might be lucky to hold these coins if you don't, decide to follow our plan. But Austin, I think you're a smart guy and you will implement what we just told you for free. So you might get lucky because others BTC is at pretty much all-time lows, others ETH as well. IWM versus SPX as well, which is the small caps versus Bitcoin index, small caps versus big cap index in the stock market. So the chances are slowly getting better. But the thing is, you need to time it correctly, right? If you just hope and you just want your coins to go up at some point, you will get wrecked. You will just lose money. Your portfolio is going to go down and you're not going to have your desired outcome, which is, first of all, a growing portfolio. And second of all, an amazingly good performing portfolio, right? So once again, what's the solution to that, Robin?
So it's again very simple. It's
always simple solutions.
It's always simple solutions. Yeah. I think we're just pretty good at what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's simply sharding your altcoins against the strongest major that you identified already, or versus Bitcoin. Like you can do both. Like you can analyze it or let it run against Bitcoin and the strongest major. And based on that, you will know which altcoin is worth holding and which one isn't. In your case, we said sell everything. You can do the steps yourself, so to understand our thinking. So look at the paper and Fed chart versus Bitcoin and the strongest major, which is, as of now, Ethereum. And just look at the up or down trend. Like, I would say we can already show or tell you about what you're going to see. You will see a huge downtrend. So you were invested in a higher risk coin, hoping that you will make money at some point, which, by the way, is not a process that you can replicate. So it's luck, and because of that, it's a bad decision that you've made. But the sooner you cut a bad position, the better. So yeah, simply charted versus Bitcoin and the strongest major. And if it's an up, or if it's going into an uptrend, it's a good one. If not, it's a position that you should cut.
If you have done this strategy since 2022, your portfolio got absolutely wrecked. And we see so many people who held coins since 2022 just because they hoped they would go back up again, and their portfolios crashed 80%, 90%. Just crazy stuff, which actually makes me a little bit sad. But, it's just the reality, and you just need to time it right. It's that easy. And the thing is, what I always tell people, once you get out of a coin, it doesn't mean that you can never go back inside. People have this thing in their mind where if I sell it, I can never buy it, and I will never make
them. It's angry. Why did you sell?
Exactly. I can never go back, and then blah blah blah. And just wait for a reversal. Yeah. Wait for it to come back up. Right? Just because you sell doesn't mean you cannot rebuy it. Sell it, and when you see a nice uptrend again, just rebuy it. Which brings us to the next point. You want to identify the problem.
Yeah, all right. So identifying strong altcoins and buy them. So
now you have, sorry to interrupt. So now you sold all your stuff because you've identified that all your coins are probably in a downtrend versus BTC and ETH, and you're probably holding USDT or ETH, Austin. So the next point is, what do I do with this cash? I have my ETH, I have my USDT. What do I do now? How do I identify the good coins which you guys are talking about?
Yeah, and a lot of people, like you mentioned that one of your core problems is time, right? Time to research coins. I don't know why people always overcomplicate this process. In the beginning, I was the same. I invested a lot of time in doing fundamental analysis. I looked at the team, I looked at that, I looked at that, I looked at that. I spent hours and hours in the market trying to find that one coin that just looks good out of a fundamental perspective. And in the beginning, I also did what most people are doing right now. So just watching YouTube videos. So what's going to happen if you continue doing that? Basically, the same problems that occurred in your current portfolio will come again. So if you sell everything and just do the same process that you have followed again, you will again end up with the same problem at the same step of this video. So if you don't understand how to invest like smart money does, you will always be chasing. You will always be the one investing a lot of time, investing a lot of effort, and losing a lot of money if you are not following the process that Jacques is presenting you right now.
A simple process is just to look at coins, chart them versus Bitcoin versus ETH. Are they going up? Yes, great, buy. Your altcoin versus BTC goes down, sell. It's that easy.
I think we need a speaker where we can press a button and always say this. I say this so often, and people are still not the people who follow me and really use this knowledge already make money. But
and also a small thing to the problem is there's nothing inherently wrong about doing good fundamental analysis and identifying good coins, but you also need it's a bit more complex than that. So many good coins which were fundamentally sound just went down only. And the biggest example is ETH again. Yeah. For 3 years, it went down versus Bitcoin, right? So it doesn't really matter. What matters is the environment, right? If you also zoom out and look at the stock market, it's like value versus growth is going down only, right? So growth stocks are outperforming the value ones, right? So it's kind of the same with crypto. There's times where fundamental analysis works and times where it doesn't work. So if you only look at fundamental analysis, you will only perform well in certain times. And it can be 10 years. It can be that you wait 10 years for fundamentally strong coins to go up again, right? And we have a fundamental phase. All these things change, but you do not need to understand when these phases occur. Obviously, we do, and you can learn that as well. We teach that, but you can just take your altcoin versus USD, Bitcoin, ETH, and put an indicator on it, or just some basic TA. Is it in a downtrend? Good, hold it. And then is it going down? Just sell it, which is pretty easy. And it's a beautiful transition to our next point.
Lock in profits.
Lock in
before
profits.
they vanish. Yeah, and I think like a lot of people with a portfolio around the same size as yours always face this like greed problem. Like when you have a smaller portfolio, obviously you see like other people on social media making millions of crypto, and you want the same. So you really want to squeeze out that last bit of profit that is in this one altcoin. So you hold, even if you had a good bet, goes up and goes up and goes up, and you say, okay, 10% more, or like another 2x, and then I get out of it. The problem is like this method is, I would say, the most certain way to lose all your profits that you've made throughout the bull run. Just like we get into the solution in a second, but just approach crypto as a marathon, not as a sprint. Take profits, get out, don't get greedy. And if you are wondering, like, how do I control my emotions and stuff like this? Traders talk about that a lot, right? In the end, if you have a system that you can follow, you don't have to control your emotions anymore, because you have certain rules and set rules that you simply follow. And then you just turn your emotional brain off, because you have a system that actually makes money. And if you are not sure about, like, if you should still listen to your like inner voice telling you to hold, just look at your performance versus the performance of a system. How much did we perform since the April lows?
Since April lows,
yeah.
Right now, I believe 70, 80%, something like that.
So we follow a system, and if your portfolio performance is below 70 to 80%, your emotions are garbage. So this doesn't sound like the crazy numbers.
Maybe it's even more. I don't know right now.
I think it's more.
I don't know right now.
I
need to look at the numbers.
But just compare the performance of a systematic investor, and an investor who is doing like fundamental analysis and gets into coin because some YouTuber is talking about it, right? So, Jacques.
So,
should we take out the speaker?
Take the speaker out again. It's time.
It's time.
So, people just don't know when to take profits, when to exit, right? Because now, Austin, you have identified the strongest coins, you have bought them, and now, you want to lock in profits, and you need to rotate back if you actually want to keep your money. So what do you do once again? Take your altcoin, chart it versus USD, Bitcoin, or ETH. And then, if it's red, if it goes down, you press the sell button and you buy back ETH, BTC, or USDT, depending on the market phase, right? And then you can go back to step number one, is Bitcoin, ETH, or Solana in a uptrend or in a downtrend versus USD? And if they're all in a downtrend versus USD, it means you should be holding cash. Thus, if you sell your altcoin, you just buy cash instead of Bitcoin, ETH, or Sol. But if they're in an upwards trajectory versus USD, you just buy BTC, ETH, or Sol. And then you wait until it goes down. Maybe it never recovers again. But if there should be a recovery and an uptrend again, what do? You buy. It's that easy. So,
There's no magic.
It's pretty simple. It's actually pretty simple.
It's a simple system. That's also the beauty of it, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to be a Harvard professor to use it. You don't need to be a quant. You don't need 100 computers monitoring the market each and every day. You can do it at home if you know how to apply the system and if you know how to implement it the right way.
Especially if you have a small portfolio. Especially when you have a small portfolio. People are always like, I need to 10x my portfolio overnight. They're super greedy. They're looking for the next 100x. Man, if you've been doing that for the last 3 years, it only works in certain periods of time and only maybe 5%, 10% of the entire time. So even if you have a small portfolio, trust me, I've seen it black and white in our community. Small portfolios get big really fast if you just rotate with majors and if you do this altcoin tactic. You don't need all this super deep research and buying that one coin that's going to make you rich. It's not the way.
We actually have a couple of people who went from 20 to 100K using this method. Even more, yes. So it's that simple. We really need the speaker. For the next podcast, we get out the speaker. All right. So now you have a clear roadmap that you can follow. And I want to see proof that you're actually following it. We just recorded, I don't know how long, for how many minutes. Usually people pay us like $5,000 per hour. So take that knowledge, apply it, and you will make more money than you're currently doing.
Austin, I want to see good performances.
Yeah. So right.
You got all of this for free.
Yeah. So this is the secret sauce. If you want us to implement all of the steps that we have been just talking about, I've put a link to our program below the video. Apply if you feel like you need help with the steps. If not, also totally fine. Just make money and send me proof that you actually applied the system. This makes us really happy. And with that being said,
see you in the next one.
See you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.